What's up, you guys? I wanted to talk today a little bit about the power of the will. So, first, I'll start off by explaining what the will is, and very simply, it's the ability to be able to choose between any given thing at any point, right? So, when you think of it, let's just talk about in a simple sense of exercise or something like that. You may push yourself to the limit, and you may feel like your body has nothing left. Let's say, for example, you're in a practice. As an athlete, I've had a lot of moments like this where I've been in a practice, I've felt like my body has nothing left to give, but it's either you quit and you walk off the court, or you find something inside of you to continue to keep going and to just push through it, right? And so since I kind of have had my spiritual awakening and had to kind of learn more about myself and turn internally, I've learned kind of a few ways to strengthen my own will without necessarily having to push myself physically. It's more of a mental game, all right? So I just kind of was called today to talk to you guys about the power of the will and hopefully give you guys a little bit of a better understanding and maybe help you guys strengthen your own wills in your own lives for whatever you may need it for. So the first thing I want to explain is that anytime you feel inner resistance and you're torn between two choices and you know one is better for you than the other, but the one that is not as beneficial for you may be the more comfortable route and it may be the easy path to walk, that's really when it's important to exercise the power of your own will. And so, like I used with the example of the athlete, I love the game of basketball too much to just walk away from it, to just say I quit. I don't care that this is hard right now in the moment. I'm just going to walk away from it and never come back. I always had to find it in myself to continue to keep going, even though at that present moment it was much more difficult for me to continue. And I really did just have that inner resistance and want to quit, right? But you have to exercise the power of that will to make sure that you always make choices that are beneficial for you and not taking you down the wrong path. So one of the ways that I would say to really understand how to use your will is when you feel that inner resistance towards what you know you need to be doing, just take a deep breath and really observe what's going on. Most of the time it's mental. Sometimes you'll feel resistance in the body, for example, when you're physically exhausted, but most times it's a mental resistance. Most times you are just thinking you don't want to do this. I don't want to go this route. I don't want to, take the hard path. And so when you take that deep breath, you kind of allow yourself to take a step back and be the witness of the resistance as opposed to identifying with it. And so let me take you guys through another personal experience of mine that I had. And when I was growing up, I actually had an extreme fear of spiders. I had legit arachnophobia. It didn't matter if the spider was this big or if it was a tarantula. For some reason, my brain reacted the same regardless. I saw 8 legs and I saw a spider, and it would create such fear inside of me that I would freeze up sometimes. I would actually literally just not be able to function. I would run away from my fear as opposed to run towards it. And so again, as I grew into my spiritual awakening, I started to explore myself, the inside of myself deeper. I started to realize that my fear of spiders was irrational. My fear of spiders wasn't based on even a past experience. I might have had spiders crawl on me, but I had never been bitten. I had never had a serious, just a seriously negative experience with spiders. But for some reason, my mind created a fear that would paralyze me. It would literally stop me from being able to do anything productive if there was a spider anywhere in my vicinity, even if it was just sitting on its web, chilling, not bothering anybody. So once I kind of realized that I had that irrational fear, I decided to face it. And the way I did that was I didn't run from spiders. I actually embraced spiders. I actually would begin to, when I would see a big spider sitting on a web, I would go up and I would look at it and I would try to appreciate its beauty, appreciate the intricacy of its web. There was times where I would go walking in the woods and there would be a spider hanging on a web above my head, and if I would have been before, I would have taken the comfortable path. I would have turned around and walked away, and I would have just said, I don't need to go that way. I can stay away from the spider if I turn around and I, don't embrace it. But instead, what I started to do is I faced it. I walked right underneath, and it would literally send chills down my spine. I would literally feel such a deep fear, but I would walk right through it, and I would realize that I was creating that fear myself as opposed to it actually being a real danger, because most times spiders are just chilling. They're just doing their own thing, right? But so that's an example. I'll give you one more too, just so we can get deep into it. But I had a fear of rejection. I had a fear of failure, right? And so as I continued my basketball career and the stakes got a little bit higher and there was more eyes on me, I started to downplay my own ability, my own skill, because I was afraid to get out on the floor and give everything I had and it not turn out the way I wanted to. And that ended up coming back to bite me eventually. But, you know, it's something that you learn from. It's something that you grow from. And because of that, I've become a better person, because I was able to go internally. I was able to assess the things that I wasn't happy to live with, and I was able to work on changing them, right? And so some specific ways that I've learned to really be able to strengthen your will, other than face your fears, obviously, that's the one I've talked about already, is sometimes you need to expose yourself to cold. That's one thing that I've actually found to be extremely beneficial for myself, whether that be a cold shower or ice bath. Most people just naturally have a inclination to run away from the cold. If they feel that they want to get out, if they feel the cold shower, they want to turn the water up hot. If they hop into the ice bath, they instantly want to jump out. But being able to sit with that discomfort, that just not feeling the warmth that you're accustomed to, it eventually helps you come into that center of, okay, regardless of what this external situation is, I'm going to sit with myself and figure out how to get through this, how to push to the better path, push to the, it may not be comfortable, but to the thing that I know is beneficial for me. Another thing is just extreme physical exercise, like we talked about with the practice, and it's extremely difficult to be able to do that on your own. If you have a buddy or you have a workout partner or you have teammates, it's much easier to push yourself past your limits with those people, but it's not as easy when you're alone. But that's when the real breakthroughs happen. If you can continue to push yourself past your limits and to the point of literal exhaustion, whether that be throwing up or passing out when you're on your own, it actually can really kind of just shows you that you always have more than you think you have. You always have the ability to push farther, regardless of what mental limitations you have. And so again, that's one of the things that has really benefited me, was finding out what I had inside of me and how far I could push myself without, just quitting is the best way to put it, without just giving up on myself. And so through these past 2.5 years of just gradually strengthening my own will, I've realized that a lot of the limitations I had set on myself earlier in life weren't real. They were just things that I boxed myself into to keep myself comfortable. Now, because I'm so obsessed with my own personal growth, I face my fears as often as possible. If I realize I'm afraid of something, for example, I'll be honest with you guys, if you've heard one of my talks before, I don't like speaking on camera. It's part of me that still is partially fearful of making mistakes, of getting onto this Instagram live. I can't edit this, right? This is all just raw. This is wide open. And a part of me is always a slight bit afraid of, what if I say something stupid and y'all laugh at me? Or what if I do something crazy, say something crazy, and it blows up and goes viral and everybody's just clowning? But at the end of the day, I know who I am internally. I know what my principles are. I know what I stand for. I know what I try to bring to people's lives. And so I'm comfortable with, even if I do make a mistake and get clowned, or even if I do something that society perceives as wrong, I still know who I am, and I'm comfortable in that. And so that is a way of me strengthening my will by hopping onto this right now, is facing that fear of public speaking. Even though it's on a camera, it's being open with people and being engaged in knowing that I could make a mistake while I'm speaking. So that's a way of me strengthening my will. And another one that has been super beneficial to me is fasting. Now, I fast personally from food and social media. Those are my two main sources of fasting. But you can fast from anything that keeps you distracted, anything that keeps you comfortable, or anything that you desire in general. And what you'll learn is that your mind is very impulsive. Your mind will want something right at the moment, and you have to kind of learn to detach yourself from it and not satisfy those impulses right away. When you can learn to do that, when you can learn to take a step back, like we talked about earlier, and just not always grab for the things that your mind tells you it wants, you begin to strengthen that will as well. Because, for example, food is something that's necessary for life. It's not something that you can live without, but we overeat, especially here in America. We eat much more than is needed for survival and growth. And so when you begin to fast, so from, again, speaking from the food, you begin to realize that I'm over consuming in order to keep myself comfortable, in order to feed those desires. And then if you continue to feed those desires, it's like a fire, it'll continue to grow. If you don't have the self-control to not take whatever you desire right away, eventually you will be in a much harder position to learn how to gain that control. Same thing with the social media, right? People scroll social media all day, every day. I know people with screen times that are over 10 hours a day. You only get 24 and you got to sleep at some point. So just think about how much time you're wasting. But it comes back to understanding the mind being impulsive. I had times in college where if I didn't have my phone, I would feel anxiety. Or I would scroll social media and then I would exit it just to open another one. Then when I'm finished opening that other social media, I'm closing and going back to the one I just finished. And my timeline's barely different. There may be 2 or 3 new tweets, right? And so you get caught up in just always wanting something to distract you from the internal, from what you have inside of you. And again, facing fears is not comfortable. Pushing yourself physically is not comfortable, but the more that you can do that, the stronger of a human you become, and the more beneficial your life is, not only to yourself but to others, because you know how to push yourself through those difficult times to come through on the other side and see the benefits and see the results of fighting through that adversity and fighting through that moment that at the time seemed like you just couldn't do it, but you found it inside of you to continue going. And so each time that you choose something that may not be the comfortable path in the moment, or may not be the easy path to walk, but you know it's better for you, you strengthen your will every time. And each time you do that, it gets a little bit easier. When I first started fasting, I couldn't even make it probably, I'd say 6 hours without, I felt like I needed a piece of bread. I needed, a cracker or anything that would satisfy that hunger, that pain, that urge. And now that I've been doing it consistently, I say I've probably been doing it for close to a year now, maybe a little bit longer, I can go literal days. The longest I've ever gone, I believe, was 60 hours without any food. But I know if I needed to, I could go longer, because I've now strengthened my will to a point where any desire that I have does not pull me away from myself. It doesn't pull me away from who I know I am. And so I'm able to look at those desires, look at those impulses, and decide for myself if fulfilling that desire will be beneficial to my life, as opposed to just going out and grabbing whatever my mind desires and then having to deal with the consequences later. So that's basically all I wanted to get into about the power of your will today. As always, I appreciate anybody that tuned in to watch this. I appreciate anybody that will tune in to watch this after it's posted. And I hope that if you guys have any questions, you feel free to comment them, DM me, ask for my number. I'm here. I'm an open book for everybody. I don't mind being, vulnerable with people. That's what we all need, is just to be open and honest and heal with each other. So feel free to hit me up anytime. Love you guys, love everybody, and I hope that we can all continue to just become better versions of ourselves every day. Peace.